him in all that he does. He cares deeply about the impact that he brings to his communities and our state, and he cares deeply about what he will leave behind. He's an extraordinary leader and a wonderful friend, Senator Schumer.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsten. It's great to be here with so many distinguished members of the clergy and participants in our churches and organizations. But I first want to thank Kirsten Gillibrand. I don't know anyone who has done a summit like this, and so many people from all over the state coming down to D.C. And that shows you the kind of original thinking, hard work, persistence, and caring that my great partner in the Senate in New York has, Kirsten Gillibrand. She deserves another round of applause for all of us. By the way, she led our Senate prayer breakfast just until last year. And that's because she is a person like myself of real deep faith. And I very much appreciate that. I want to also acknowledge, of course, you know, who's here from Brooklyn? We got a lot of Brooklyn pastors. Well, Brooklyn is in the house now. Hakeem Jeffries, who you'll hear from later, is our leader there. I'm the leader in the Senate, first majority leader ever from New York, and first senator from Brooklyn ever. But I like the whole state equally well. Don't you worry. I do. But Brooklyn is certainly in the house, and you'll hear from Hakeem, and God willing, he becomes Speaker. We will have Brooklyn leading the House and Senate. So first, I want to thank you. I so believe in our churches. I've always said this from all the years I've been in politics. You know, when I first, by the way, this is a story I haven't told much, but pastors elected me when I ran for Congress. I was running against a right-wing racist. It was so bad, the racism was so bad that he'd put pictures on the polls of me just with my arms around two black people. And that's all they had to put on the polls. It was that bad. And I refused to come out against busing. And I was getting pummeled in those top days. And 3 ministers came to me. I didn't know them. Okay? One was the Reverend Gardner Taylor of the Concord Baptist Church, who, by the way, he used to say, he who speaketh by the, he who thinketh by the ounce and speaketh by the pound should be kicketh by the foot. So I'll try to be somewhat brief. He and from the Bethany Baptist Church, where's Pastor Lacey? Right? There you are. And that was Pastor, you know, I mentioned him on the floor today, Pastor Jones. And a few of the other pastors came to me. Some of them were from my district, some not. I went up to Eastern Parkway. And they said, you are being so strong, we're going to support you. And I won the whole northern third of my district, and that's how I got elected. So pastors elected me to the Congress in those days. Bill Jones, Gardner Taylor, and from the, from the Cornerstone Baptist Church, Pastor Wright. That was the third one. So anyway, so I believe in you, and I believe in our churches. I've always said, when our churches are strong, our communities are strong. When our churches are weak, our communities are weak. And so I've always supported you in every way that I can. Your ministry, your most important part of your ministry, is bringing the Word of God to all of your constituents, parishioners, and the people. But it's also so important of the temporal work you do, of the secular work you do here on earth. And our churches are our mainstay for so many different activities, whether it's for social services or seniors or education or child care, you name it. So you are it. And I try to stay in communication. How many of you have received a video message from me in the last while? Yeah, if you haven't, every couple of weeks, I just did one for Easter Sunday. Every couple of weeks, I do a video of what's going on in D.C. and how it affects your congregants. And do you know, every week about 50,000 people watch, every time I do one. So now Josh Allbrooks runs this for me. Where's Josh? Come here, come here. So you get to see what he looks like. If you want to get these videos, please give Josh you're just your name, address, and we'll get them to you. Many of you get them, many of you don't, but it's really, it's my way of communicating. In a state of 20 million people, I can't be everywhere. Although, you know, I do say this, I'm Jewish, but I've been more churches than just about any Christian. So I try to get to as many of them as I can. But thank you for those who play them, and other people, please do it. Why? So you are so important to us, to our country, our community, our state. Before I get into a little more about the churches and what we're doing, I want to say something quickly about Haiti. You know, we have a great Haitian community. By the way, the first big church, Father Nicholas, Bishop Phileas Nicholas, was going broke because they had put their money in a bank that went under, and I saved them. This is back in the 70s. I mean, I go way back with them. I don't think Bishop Nicholas is here either. Bishop Phileas or his son, Pastor Sam, is not here, but they are great. But we have to do more to help Haiti. It is really a scourge. The Haitian people are such beautiful, strong people and are so talented in so many ways. And yet, you know what I'm funding right now, getting funded? A helicopter service, because if you get sick in Haiti, you can't go to the doctor because the gangs will rob you, hurt you on your way. So we now have funded a helicopter service that's connected to the hospitals, and if you're sick, you call them, they land in your front yard and take you to the hospital and come back. That's how bad it is. That's how much we have to do to help Haiti, and we're going to do more, and I will use my job. By the way, you know, as majority leader, I have some clout, and I try to use it for you. And I forgot to mention this. I was elected last November, not this past one, to my 5th term. I'm the first New Yorker ever to have 5 terms. And guess who voted for me more than anybody else? You, your constituents, your church members. So I never forget that. So anyway, I always try to help our churches. And one of the stories that I like to tell is in COVID, our churches were going broke. No one was showing up, no collection plate. How are you going to pay the pastor? How are you going to pay the rent? How are you going to pay the mortgage? And so we set up this PPP program. I was then minority leader in the EIDL program. But religious institutions weren't eligible. And Dr. Franklin Richardson of Grace Baptist in Mount Vernon, and Reverend Sharpton, who I know you're going to hear from later, right? Or you heard from him already. And Mark Moriel of the Urban League. And anyway, came to me and said, you've got to get the churches in. I was opposed by both the left and the right. The right didn't want to spend money. The left said you shouldn't give religious institutions money. I said, of course we have. These people are suffering from COVID is like anything else, and all the things they do, helping people, helping elderly, feeding people, they're all going to go under. And so we wrote the law, and many of our churches got this money to help during the COVID crisis. That's how much I care about you doing that. So I'm always fighting for you because you're so important to our well-being, and the good work you do all the time is that way. And you saved us. You helped us out of the pandemic more than anybody else. So here, and then when we did the child tax credit, which, you know, gave the checks to every family, and we got half the children in poverty out of poverty. It was amazing. So we are now trying, as majority, we're being blocked by some of our Republican friends. We're trying to make it permanent, and it would be amazing to people to get that done. We're working on it, and we're doing it as much as we can. Some more things that we're trying in just this bill. We're trying. I'm trying to keep the government open. You know, you got some crazy people over there in the House who want to shut down the government. They wanted a default. I went to them and said, how can you let us default? It'll cost everybody more money. Oh, things couldn't be worse. And these are hard, right, nasty people. And we have to fight them every step of the way. And so that's what I'm in the middle of doing now, preventing them from shutting down the government. But in the bill we put together, because I have clout as majority leader, because I have great help from people like Senator Gillibrand, we funded WIC and raised the increase. We put more money into housing. We put money into school lunch and summer breakfast. So those are things we're trying in this bill. And here are some of the other things we've been able to do in the last couple of years. We got insulin lowered to $35 a month for senior citizens. Now we're fighting to get it to everyone else. So many seniors and so many in our communities of color have diabetes. Insulin shouldn't have cost any money, because the guy who invented it was a Canadian in 1921. He was a generous guy. He said, I'm selling the patent for $1. So how dare all these drug companies charge $600, $700, $800 a month for insulin, and people were losing their legs, losing their eyes, not being... We got it to 35 for all seniors in last year's bill, and now we're fighting to get it for everybody else. Here's a couple of more things. Here's another thing on drugs. We put a cap on the cost of drugs for all seniors. Now we're trying to do that for everyone, too. $3,300 this year, $2,000 for next year. People would come to me and say, I have cancer. The doctor said this drug will cure me and prolong my life. But it costs $800 a month, and the insurance company said no. What am I going to do? Watch myself wither away? What am I going to do for my parents, my children? So we now put a cap. No one will pay this year more than $3,300 for all the drugs they buy, and next year it goes down to $2,000. That person will live and be able to afford the drugs. Another issue we're working on is student debt. So many of our young people, and not only young people, middle-aged people, there are even some senior citizens who still have some of this debt. So many. It's a huge burden. So I've been pushing, along with Senator Warren, President Biden. So far, 4 million people have had all their debt erased, and about half of those are people of color, because it affects our communities more than others. Many are first-time college and everything. And another 7 or 8 million have had it cut in half, and we are going to keep fighting until all of that debt is removed from people's burden, plain and simple. That's another thing. I'm just going over some of the things we've been doing here. Maternal mortality. A nice, I can't remember her name, a nice lady in Westchester from Yonkers educated me all on how bad it is. Listen to how bad maternal mortality is. You know it probably, but it's worth saying. A black upper middle class or middle class woman has a greater chance of dying in childbirth than a poor white woman. That shows you how deep the tentacles of racism are in our healthcare system. So we have a bill called the Momnibus to undo all that. And we passed, it's now law, the first big step for their first year of giving birth, from birth all the way through a child being 1 year old. There's health coverage for all moms, Medicaid, CHIP, and everything else. That's going to greatly reduce mortality, and we have to do more. What about the guns on our streets? That's another one I'm trying to work on. You know, I don't know if you know this. I'm the author of the Brady Law and the assault weapons ban, 1994. Some of our younger pastors were just in toddlers when I passed that. And I was on the cover, I still am, of the NRA magazine with a bullseye on my forehead, you know. But we passed it. Well, last summer, we had the greatest legislative session in 30 years. No one saw so much get done, because we had the House, we had the Senate, me as Majority Leader, and we had the presidency under President Biden. But we passed our first bill, our gun safety bill, and beat the NRA in 30 years. Who's here from Buffalo? Anybody? Yes, there you are. Hi, everybody. The top supermarket shooting, the people came down and lobbied, and we got this done. And I had a special relationship because, you know, I saved Tops. Tops was going to be taken over by some big company and put out of business. I saved them. And the head of Tops, Mr. Nanula, said to me, all right, what can I do for you? He was thinking he'll raise money from this. I said, you know what? The east side of Buffalo doesn't have a supermarket. Build one. And that was the Tops he built in like 2001 or 2. It became a great community meeting place. But then we had those 10 people shot. But they came down from Buffalo to lobby, and we got our first gun bill passed in 30 years. And I know I let all of you know about that, and people wrote about it. We now are trying to get funding, there's a man named Kay Bain who worked for Jamal, not Jamal Bowman. Jamani Williams, called community violence intervention. People go out into the streets, people from the community, and they tell the young people there's a better way than violence. And they have mobiles to go around, and they have school centers and community centers, and we've gotten that funded federally. I talked to Joe Biden about it, and lo and behold, he liked it, and it's in the budget. So that's something we're doing. And finally, I'll talk about judges. You know the power of federal judges. And all too often, before I became leader, most of the judges, frankly, were white male partners from fancy law firms. We have dramatically changed that. I get to nominate who were put on the floor, the judges who were put on the floor. Listen to this. We now have put in 185 judges. We will put in more judges than Donald Trump did, counteracting the right-wing judges that he put in that take away rights. But listen, ladies, 2/3 are women. Pastors, 2/3 are people of color. We have 55 black judges, a record, 35 black women judges, 110 judges of color, and of course, at the top of the list, Ketanji Brown Jackson, our first African-American woman on the court. We're going to keep doing that. So I'm going to keep fighting for you, for our churches and for our community, because I believe in you. We've had an alliance ever since the days of Gardner Taylor and Bill Jones got me started. And I want to conclude by telling you this. A little bit about my father. My father struggled his whole life. He was an exterminator. He never had much money. He was a very smart man, but circumstances did not let him go to college or anything like that. And he struggled, but he never complained. When he died, I realized I never heard him utter words of resentment against people who might have been given a better break than him. I talked about Haiti, Nazis. Okay. But he left me with values. Those of you who've been close to your parents, particularly if they're recently gone, will know what I mean when I say he's standing here right next to me, still guiding me. And he taught me two values above all, that shape my life and shape my Senate service. One, always help people who need help. And the more they need help, the more you should help them. That's what the scriptures teach us. And second, he said to me this. He said, if you're doing something important, look in your heart. Make sure it's the right thing to do. And once you're sure it's the right thing to do, whether it's a family thing, a business thing, a professional thing, a personal thing, once you're sure it's the right thing to do, persist, 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 never give up, and God will reward you. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends in the clergy, together we will persist and persist and persist and never give up until we make America a far more perfect nation than it is today. Thank you. God bless you all. God bless your churches. God bless America. Thank you. Thank you. Good. Bye, everybody.
So we have just 10 minutes left of our luncheon, and then we're going to leave at 1 to go meet Leader Jeffries back at the Kennedy Caucus Room at 1:15, so don't dilly-dally. Our next speaker is Yvette Clarke, who is not only an extraordinary